by first listening to this song, How Can I Keep From Singing? If you've been listening to my show, you know this has been my theme song. I picked it a while back, and I've been slowly working on a production of it. I originally envisioned that it would just be piano, this very particular piano arpeggio that you'll hear. I started with just that. Then I recorded some vocals. Then I added in a little bit of some cello and string, all through my Logic Pro. And that's where I had intended to leave it. And that's where it kind of got stuck for a couple of months as I just got, busy with other compositions and other things. And so when I went in to master it last Thursday, with the intention that it was like, okay, I need to go ahead and just finish this out, get it off my plate, and release it for my Friday night video, which, if you don't know, every Friday I've been committed for a couple years now to release a video, and they range from all kinds of things to fully produced songs and collaborations with videographers to, me, a raw cut of me practicing in a piano room and setting it to images. But I typically try to use my intuition and my creativity to create these. Sometimes it's just a raw performance and it's just the footage of me playing. Sometimes, like this last week with How Can I Keep From Singing, I wanted to combine it with some images of trees that I'd gotten in California. So I have an old phone, but I still like to, carry it around with me and video when the spirit inspires. And then I'll sort of set those to some of my videos. And sometimes it really does work out perfectly. Like when I sit down to combine music with the video, I feel a very strong sense of expression and creativity. It's something that I'm thrilled to get to do. So I'll talk a bit more about that, but I think what would be great to do is actually to listen to the production I made, because when I sat down last Thursday with this raw cut of How Can I Keep From Singing, I really just intended to clean it all up and leave it as a piano, violin, cello, voice, kind of chamber music sound. And it went a whole different way. I don't know what exactly happened. It had to go beyond my logic because I knew I actually didn't have that much time at all to finish a full production. But it went a different way. And I had so much fun creating it. It felt truly like an inspired session. So I'm going to play the full piece for you now. It's about 5 minutes and 38 seconds. While we're listening, I'm going to encourage active listening, something I've spoken about on other episodes, which is just using listening to music as a meditation and trying to keep your mind focused on the music only. As thoughts come up, as feelings come up, you feel them, but you let them go and you refocus back to the music. And if you want to take it a step deeper, if you're a musician or aspiring musician, then you can really try to dissect the production itself. Try to recognize what it is you're hearing. Right? Like, so the instrumentation, the actual lyrics themselves, and, anything else that you might notice, sensations in your body. You're just trying to be fully aware and embodied and present as you're listening for this full 5 minutes and 38 seconds. So here we go. This is How Can I Keep From Singing, my final production.
Goes on in an endless song. Above the earth's lamentation, I hear the real, though far off hymn. That hails a new creation through all the turmoil and the strife. I hear its music ring. It sounds an echo in my soul. How can I keep from singing? Swallow the tempest loud. and shame, my most gone. Well, to that rock I'm clinging, since love is Lord of heaven and earth. How can I keep from singing? Tyrants tremble with fear. Hear their death melody. Friends rejoice both far How can I keep from singing? Prison cells and dungeon vials. Thoughts to them are wings. Friends by shame outrun deep dive. How can I keep from singing? I lift my eyes and the cloud grows still. See the blue above it. Day by day, this pathway's Since first I learned to love it, the peace of Christ makes fresh my heart. Fountain ever springing, all things are mine since I am His. How can I keep from singing? 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 How can I keep from singing?
Okay. How can I keep from singing? So, where to begin? Before I begin, actually, with that production and the video, which you can see on my YouTube, and I do highly recommend seeing the video, and we'll talk about how I match the visuals with that music. But we've spoken, or I've spoken on this show about the lyrics themselves, which really have been hitting home. And it's wonderful when I can find a song that is sort of my song for a season. Sometimes maybe a year, sometimes maybe 6 months, but it's a song that I can continually find comfort and inspiration in. This has been that song for me this last 6 months and continues to be. So it was a really fun song to work on as for production, because every time I work on it, it's grounding me, it's comforting me, it's expressing my soul. And so I won't go back into the lyrics, but that's originally what attracted me, was the lyrics. And the idea of how can I keep from singing has just been such a wonderful mantra, because singing, I believe, and I've said many times, is something we all need to get back to. It's not about being a great singer. It's not about trying to have a singing career, although those are obviously topics for some people that are important and we'll get into. But for everyone, singing is just something that helps you with your well being, that brings your full power into focus. It's a part of what I think is the human condition and something that we've been talked out of being, using like so many things. It's a talent and a power that we've been talked out of, and to the idea that only some people sing or only some people have good voices and we should just let them sing, because it's more so about the power of singing on your own body and its ability to keep you in a sense of well-being, to express your well-being, to keep you in alignment with your soul, to connect you with other human beings, and to elevate your situation in so many ways. It can be such a portal to higher vibrations. And so don't let yourself be talked out of that just because you think you don't sound good. You think you can't sing. Many, many people have been blocked in this way, and I've had to face that many times. And we'll probably have to do a full episode at some point about why that is and what you can do about it. But in the meantime, how does it feel to sing? And for many people, they haven't done it and they have so much anxiety. It doesn't actually feel good. But most of the children that I meet love to sing. Below a certain age, they just love to sing because it's part of the human condition. It's just the same as walking or running or skipping. Some people love it more than others, but it's part of your human palette of expression. And I was on a show last week called The Knights of the Storm, Jason Barker, and it's here on freeworld.fm, as many other locations as well that I'll list. I'll try to list. I was on that show speaking about this idea of just encouraging people to get back to singing, even from a spiritual warfare place. You're at home singing while you're doing the dishes, or you're in traffic and you're singing, and it can do so much to infect your environment. I didn't get a chance to talk about this on Jason's show, but one of my favorite children's book is called Mole Music, and it illustrates this mole underground who's learning the violin. And as he's playing underground, he has no idea what's going on above him. It's like the effects of his music as he gets better and better at his practice, which takes many years, is affecting the world around him. The plants are growing differently. Animals are frolicking. And then there's a point towards the end of the book. Well, I won't give it away. It's such a cute book. It's one of my favorites. And wonderful for children. But the idea is that even when you're at home and you're practicing and you're by yourself and you think nobody can listen to you, maybe you're doing more than you think. Maybe you're affecting the frequency and the collective more than you think by, in that moment, rather than worrying or getting lost in your despair, you're doing something active. You're singing, and in particular, singing a song like this one, How Can I Keep From Singing? You're refocusing your mind towards restoration, and you're creating that for yourself by not allowing yourself to get pulled into lower frequencies, not allowing yourself to get trapped. It's definitely a get out of free jail card, but in many ways, like any tool, the more you use it, the better you get at using it. So that's How Can I Keep From Singing? And I would fully recommend that you check out the Knights of the Storm episode. There was another musician on there, an incredible producer and rapper who does all his own analog instruments, which is just incredible for his mixes. And his message of his music is similar to mine, just about getting back to the truth of who we are and using music to get there. And so that's on Knights of the Storm here on freeworld.fm. And it was a great episode I would check out. We talked about a lot of things, including AI. And that brings me into this production, because I was going to be on that show in a couple of days and I knew it was going to be about AI. And trust me, I'm not one for AI music. I've never been for computer generated music. To me, even music that is too well produced, too sterilized, I don't like, because I grew up hearing live music. I grew up hearing dirty music, right? I grew up hearing the way that musicians just have to collaborate with each other and follow each other, and that they make mistakes. But sometimes those mistakes, as Miles Davis said, lead to, there are no mistakes. It leads to a whole nother world that was beyond their control, and letting go of that control and trusting on that level in music and allowing that messiness, allowing yourself to color outside the lines is sometimes what can really redirect the music in the correct direction from an overall perspective. Whereas when things get too much about perfectionism and really, it gets sterile for me, it gets cold, it loses some of that humanity, which I love. And so I'm not for AI at all. And in many ways, I didn't even think it would really be a competition between musicians creating real music, and AI generated music, which is not true creativity. It's a recombination of human creativity, right? It's just infinite recombinations. But he played some samples and oh, it was good. I had to admit it was good. And it was hard to imagine for somebody who, in the world we live in, when people and companies are struggling, why would they pay more for a human being's music versus an AI generated piece of music that sounds very professional? Let's say corporate and professional, right? Whereas if you're paying a musician like me, in many instances, I'm not able to really charge for my time. I'm typically spending way more time on compositions, pieces of music for people than what I'm actually being paid. But, I'm being paid, and I know people, Lawson Leong is one of them. I know champions that want to continue to have musicians paid, but I also recognize that the trend is headed towards AI, and in particular, like composing for cues, like music cues, which are like instrumental pieces. AI can do that no problem, right? And they can give you 3 samples in 2 seconds. I mean, the convenience is incredible. So I acknowledge that. I acknowledge that completely. And I also acknowledge that it's a slippery slope that we've been on, because I think many people don't recognize the difference, because we've been really headed that direction for a long time. We've been incorporating digital elements. We've been using formulaic type of compositions, both from the corporate boardroom of trying to make sure that, their new artist, the label's new artist, has a hit, to the artists themselves censoring themselves because they know what works. And it all becomes about, well, kind of like the professors, I want to get tenure, so I'll talk about the things that I know will get me tenure. Well, musicians, and I don't fault them, they want to get paid for their work and they want to be successful. So they end up composing in ways that they know will get hired, they know will get bought. And because of that, we've been moving a certain formulaic direction for a long time. And we've been squeezing out the improvisation and the human spirit from all of it. So many people in the last 20 years, I would say, maybe were never even exposed to the type of music where you really heard the human condition coming out. You really heard the soul of the artist. They never heard even live music from analog instruments. So it's all been heading this direction to such a degree that I feel like the general population is desensitized and maybe wouldn't really miss the soul of music. It wouldn't really sound cold and calculated to them the way maybe it does to me, the way that there would be something missing. Because I have found that coldness and that sterility in a lot of musicians themselves, just as their personalities, being not being in tune with their own soul and their own emotions, and not even wanting to come from that place, being so focused on techniques, such as in the jazz world, that it has almost become computer like, right? It's almost like we've been fashioning ourselves like AI for a long time. But AI stands for artificial intelligence. It's a counterfeit. It will never be the real thing. And so this is the kind of deep thinking I was having when I was doing this production, because, in this production of How Can I Keep From Singing, I really was, like I said, just going to do this sort of chamber music fashion. But when I sat down, Spirit took over and I wanted drums, and I started and it just happens like that for me. I know what the next step and the next step and this, and it has been such a joy for me. One of my favorite things to do is to sit here and self-produce a song like that. It is just an absolute blast. But I'd be a hypocrite if I didn't admit I wouldn't be able to do that without, I don't know if it would be called, AI, but it's a digital audio workstation, right? It's been the step towards AI. And many of the steps in that program are so automated that it's nothing like what somebody would have had to go through like 30, 40 years ago, where you'd have to have a relationship with a drummer. You'd have to be explaining that, or you yourself would have to, probably to do it in the exact way that I do it. I'd have to know all the instruments and then play all of them and then record all of them, right? And then before that, that was a cheat. Before that, all you had was the live versions. There were no recordings. So you just would have to be so, precise and with your instrumentation and your arrangement and your relationships with these musicians. And you'd have to have the time and the inclination to sit down here and play with each other. And that world is just gone. So for people like me, the only thing I've really known in producing was using a digital audio workstation. And I will say I truly enjoy it. It was such a blast to bring this together because I just at the last minute, and I really only had an hour. It was already late that night, and I only had about an hour to bring this together. And the scheduling part of me, the time management part was just like, okay, let's hurry up and get this done. But the creative side of me was like, no. And once I started down this rabbit hole, I just added in these half funk drum sets. Then I started adding in all these different types of drums, some like digital components to it. Then I brought in a 70s funk clav. Then I put a golden bowl mallet towards the end. And yeah, I loved it. It felt so good to express myself that way. And it had been already sort of a strange week. And so sitting there and having that time to put the sounds expressed, and I didn't know why. I was bypassing my own logic. I wasn't saying I'm doing this because I know this will get me a placement in this, because last week I heard so-and-so producer use that beat and I know it's a hot beat, so none of that was happening. I was bypassing my logic altogether because I really didn't even think I should be sitting there doing that time, using that time for that, right? I should be sleeping. I knew I was going to be tired. I had a busy day the next day, but instead I just one step at a time heard that and said that's it. And that is connecting with this in me, even though I don't even know what this is. And that's saying that, and that's making sense here. And it's more a symbolic type of place. I don't know how to describe it because it's like auditory symbolism. And it bypasses my logic, and it's impossible to talk about, really. But yeah, this is the joy of being able to self-produce and do it from a place that's just about your own self-expression, your own healing, keeping your mind focused, and in some ways transcending, because you can take, you can put a funky sound. At one point I put, what was it? It's this thing called alien alarm, and it's false alien alarm, right? And it has this ooh, ooh. I would never just pick a sound like that, but for me, and I would definitely never put it in this song. How can I keep from singing a hymn? But it was right because I wanted it to not sound right. I don't know how to describe it. Like, it was expressing this, anxiety that I'm having in sort of the state of the world. And the fact that, some people say that's what's coming is Project Bluebeam and the false alien agenda is out there. And so it just was it. I just knew it was the right piece. It's like a puzzle, an auditory puzzle I'm putting together, and I only can deal with one piece at a time. But the hardest part, and the part I want to encourage, is if anybody's interested in doing this work, that you just start doing it, because it's weird how, at least from my experience, it's one of the most connected places I can be, where I lose track of time and it's one piece after the other. And I'm sure my intuition is just so sure that's it, and sometimes I'll hear something like, maybe that's okay. Maybe. But when I find the drum that I want, it's it, right? I just know, and I don't question anymore. And then like the last verse, I wanted something a little bit more ethereal. And so that's when I came up with this golden bowl mallets, because it was adding in that sort of, ethereal, angelic, otherworldly, because it's like I lift my eyes and the clouds grow thin. I hear the trumpets. Well, actually, I don't know if that's what the words are there. Let me see. The last above it. But it's definitely... And the cloud grows thin. What is that? I see the blue above it. That's what it is. I see the blue above it. And this is where going into the video, I used a blue sky because a blue sky and blue above it, these are sort of, for me, symbols for a higher dimension. And I wanted to use these ethereal sounds to kind of get us there. But I also kept the alien woo, ooh, alarm in there. But then when we hit the bridge, everything cut out. I took everything out for that last bridge because I went rubato. And this is when I speak of the peace of Christ. And I had these leaves, sort of vacillating lightly. And I don't know how to describe it. The same thing happens when I put the video together. I can't overthink it. I can't spend too much time on it. But I know it's like it feels like it's spirit assembling it for me because it comes together in such a way that it's so satisfying to me. It expresses exactly this feeling, something beyond my logic that I need to express, right? It's an energy, it's an emotion, it's like a thought beyond my thought. It's a symbol. And when I'm matching these sounds to these symbols, and in this case for this song, it was a lot of trees because I absolutely adore trees. And I feel like next best thing to being out in nature is seeing images of nature. And when I'm out, truly, that's the thing I want to video the most is the beautiful nature that I see. I don't think you can improve on nature at all aesthetically, but I will combine them in my video in a bit more abstract or artistic ways to further express the auditory tones. And it's like the movement of the video or the colors, they complement or they match the sounds that I'm trying to make. So now it's like a bigger part of the electromagnetic spectrum that I'm using to express this idea. And I'm not entirely sure what these ideas are. I mean, I do actually, but it comes from a place to me that's too deep to really put into words. And so that's why I make these videos. That's why I do these songs, because I live in a level of deeper satisfaction when I am creating these things. Now, I will admit they take a lot of my time, and for the moment, I'm not making any money from the videos themselves. Now, some of the songs I'm able to do other things with, but for the most part, the songs I'm making money from, I'm not releasing in these videos for copyright reasons and contracts, etc. But what I am doing in these videos is sort of imagining that I am putting out these codes or these vibes into the internet. And that was part of the conclusion that we came to the other day on the podcast, Nights of the Storm, was the idea of garbage in, garbage out on the internet. Well, love in, love out, right? Or high frequency in, high frequency out. And it's a Rudolf Steiner idea that the digital world is going to be here to stay. It's part of our evolution, but it's up to us to figure out whether we're the masters of it or we're enslaved by it. And I certainly hope that's the case, because sometimes I've bought into the idea that the entire digital system is like from the fallen system, right? But then sometimes I'm also feel as if this whole world is the fallen world. And it can feel pretty dark some days, and I can have a pretty hard time with technology, to be honest with you. I really, in my own soul, would love to be doing everything analog, to have a piano, to have horses, to be painting. Maybe I'll be in that space someday where I have the time to paint a full canvas and then compose a piece for that canvas. And then maybe that's all I would share as a video. Or, maybe the old school way would be, then you come over to my little salon and I play this piece of music while you stare at this painting. And I think many of the similar effects that I'm doing with these videos could happen that way, because for me, it's about matching visual to auditory to express an idea that's bigger than what I can capture in words themselves, bigger than our logic. Some dimension that I'm in tune with, in touch with, but only because of my humility, not because I really understand it. And how do I know that it's a pure form and something that is going to help this world, as opposed to bringing in like more of a supernatural thing that's not. And I will tell you that's a tricky thing, because I think that's a big part of the music industry in general right now, is people feeling connected to something supernatural, but it's more like a little g god, right? And I've talked about this on other episodes, like something more from the fourth dimension, something that's service to self, something that doesn't have humanity's best interests at heart, but knows how to manipulate us. So I've been working very hard to become spiritually discerned, and I think the only real way to do that is to do the heavy lifting on your own traumas and your own personality, because otherwise you yourself would be fooled, right? And how would you know for sure? And so I have to do a lot of that work, and that's what I was doing all weekend, right? It's a constant purification process. It's a constant prayer life, and it's a constant aligning with Christ. Because for me, it wasn't until my relationship with Jesus that I really felt like I was taking back control from some influences that I wouldn't want to spread, right? I wouldn't want to share. And I completely trust that through my intention to serve others and to be part of the upliftment of the world, that is what's working out. But I, once again, want to encourage anyone out there that they use their own discernment on that, on anything I produce, anything I put out there. And I'm happy to hear your feedback on that as well. So that's the video that I released last Friday. How can I keep from singing? And it's now my new theme song production, so I'll be using that going forward. It's a bit more upbeat, funky, fun with drums than I imagined it, but that's what I love. I love being surprised by my own imagination.